should be humbled, frankly, by this experience.
Frankie became a great friend, leader, and mentor. Chief Carter, Chief Chairman, they stole a lot of my thunder. It's hard following up behind these guys because half of my speech they've already said, so I'm not going to sit here and repeat things. But there's a couple things that with Frankie that was always shocked me and it was kind of funny and everything. Okay. I remember the first time meeting Frankie. I walked up to him, I shook his hand, and I said, "How you doing, Mr. Huff?" He looked at me and he said, "I'm not Mr. Huff." And I was 14 years old, and I kind of looked at him, I'm like, "I know this guy's Mr. Huff." Well, that's what everybody told me. And his reply was, "No, Mr. Huff was my father, I'm Frankie." So from that time on, it was known as Frankie. But from time to time, when I come in, I'd say, "How you doing, Mr. Huff?" And he'd remind me, "Kevin, it's Frankie." So, coming up through the fire service, by the time I got into it and everything, Frankie was operating the trucks and running command and everything. He wasn't doing a whole lot of structural firefighting at the time. But we always knew when he was on the scene, whether he was running command, operating a truck. Because when you rolled out of the rig and you seen somebody standing there with a fire helmet on, a fire jacket, and 3/4 boots, you knew Frankie was there. That's how I remembered him seeing him on the fire scene. You always knew when Frankie was at the station. That vehicle was always parked in the same parking spot every time you go by the station. It became a norm when you went through Flint Hill, you're looking over to see if Frankie's at the fire station. And he always was. So when you stop in to talk to Frankie, he was always in the office up on the stage. And you go through those glass doors, walking into the hall there, and every time you walk in, you hear this old rolling chair roll across the floor, because he was back up in the office. You hear that chair rolling across, and next thing you know, you see an old head peek around the corner, and you knew he was up in the office. And no matter when you walked in, what time it was, if he was in that office and he leaned his head over, he always greeted you, and it was always, "Kevin, what are you doing?" "Nothing. What are you doing, Mr. Huff?" "Living a dream," is what he would say sometimes and stuff. We would sit in the office. We would talk for hours about things and all that. We'd try to solve all the world's problems within the fire and rescue and everything. But at the time, like Chief Carter and Chief Chamberlain said, when I was sitting there and we were talking about how they've done things in the past, what he's done, he was mentoring me. He was leading me. He talked to me about my career. He'd tell me, give me advice and everything. Especially when I went in, when I was off on my days, I'd go in, I'd be sitting there talking to him. He'd always be there around 2 o'clock. And I'd be sitting there, I'd be talking to him, my phone would ring. It'd be my wife. Because on my days off, I'd pick my kids up from school and everything. And the first thing she asked was, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm sitting here at Flint Hill talking to Frankie." "Oh, okay, well, you want me to pick the kids up then?" Because she knew my 5-minute conversation was going to turn into a 30-minute conversation or an hour conversation. And there was plenty of times where I was just getting to the school on time to pick the kids up when the bell rang. I remember a story Frankie always told me, whenever and Chief Carter and Chief Chamberlain talked about him serving on the association, serving on all the numerous committees he served on, and made sure that he put his foot forward to push for this county. And he was a big player for fire and rescue to get where we're at today in this county. I remember the story he told me, and some people in this room may have been present for it. But there were some things going on where the Board of Supervisors at the time were either pushing the fire department but they needed to do more fundraising or spending too much money. I'm not sure what the issue was at the time. But he told me the story of, he got everybody, I think he was president of the association, and the street in front of the courthouse, he got all the fire departments to line their apparatus up on the street at the courthouse. Went into the Board of Supervisors meeting, and the Board of Supervisors was kind of hitting down on the firefighters and everything, and all. And Mr. Huff said, "Kevin, I got up, took my hat off, and I guarantee it was the blue hat that always said Flint Hill, because that's the only hat I always remember him wearing is this Flint Hill hat." So he went around the room, collected all the keys from all the fire departments that were there, for all the vehicles sitting out on the street in front of the courthouse, walked up to the table, still the same table where the Board of Supervisors sit at today, took his hat, dumped the keys out on the table, and said, "There you go, gentlemen, you think it's that easy, you run it." He said from that day forward, he never had an issue at all.
In a lot of their Lylene factory, there will be a shuttle vehicle to be taking people back and forth from that location if needed. For those of you who require handicap parking, you may park at the fire station in front of the ramp. And please remember to park in